Welcome back to the Greg Herenda Show, where today we are honored and privileged to have an SEC basketball coach, the head coach of the Gamecocks of South Carolina, Mr. Frank Martin. Welcome to the Greg Herenda Show, Frank.
Appreciate it, brother. It seems like it was yesterday. We were all running around at Robert Morris trying to get through Station 13, huh?
You know what? It's unbelievable, the journeys that we both have taken. The show today is about a lot of things, but it's about you, my man. Number one, how is your knee? I heard you had a knee replacement surgery, which I know is very, very painful and a tough one to get through. How you doing?
I'm better today. About 4 days ago, I was beat up. And it's funny, Greg, is because both of my knees are bad, but my left one had gotten really bad with arthritis.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, you got to get it. You got to get it done. It's the best thing. You're going to love it.
Right.
You got to get it done. The doctor says, Frank, you got to get it done. The trainer, you got to get it done. So I go in, doctors, they want to perform surgery so I can have another exotic vacation in the summer. And so after the surgery, he says to me, I'm like in pain. I'm like, my God, right after surgery. He's like, yeah, Frank, this is the most complicated replacement surgery of them all. The rehab is, I'm like, thanks for telling me now. I mean, Jesus. But we're fighting it, Greg. It's going to be all right. It's going to be
okay. And I like you. You're turning into the most interesting college basketball coach with the beard and the hair, man. You look very dignified and distinguished, Frank. What's up with that?
Well, I was a little disappointed with the replacement for the most interesting man in America for Dos Equis.
Yes.
And then in our volatile profession that we're in, hug you and love you on February 19th, and on February 20th, they want you out the door.
Amen.
I said, I'm getting older. Let me prepare myself for what I'm going to do whenever this thing comes to an end. So
yes.
I figured maybe I can be the next most interesting man for the new guy's weak, Greg. Weak.
No. Yeah, it's totally. You can do that in a heartbeat. And not only are you the most interesting coach, maybe your journey. Tell us a little bit. Tell our listeners about the real grind. That you're a high school coach. You had 2 high school jobs. In Miami. How'd you get out of Miami? How'd you do it? Give the young coaches out there a little bit of a landscape of your career early on, Frank.
It's kind of like Kurt Russell in Escape from New York. If you remember that movie.
Sure.
I'm kind of Kurt Russell, the way I kind of had to get out of Miami. Greg, it's been incredible. My dream of playing came to an end my freshman year. Like a lot of guys that aren't very good, you're fighting. I tear up my knee, and I quit school. I quit everything. I gave up on my dream. And then Shaky Rodriguez, who anyone that's involved in basketball knows from his great
legend,
unbelievable. He was our coach when we were 12. He was our high school coach. He still looks out for us as his kids. And he called me and he said, hey, come by. And then a mutual friend of ours, Sergio Rocco, was the JV.
Oh, Sergio. I love Sergio.
So they told me, come help Sergio because, guys in the neighborhood respect you and help us coach. And I was like, Coach, are you kidding me? I need to make money. I got to help my mom. But because I did that, I fell in love with coaching. I had a full-time job that I started at a bank. I quit that and went back to school. And little by little, got my degree and coached high school ball for 16 years. And then in the summer of 2000, Rudy Keeling hired me at Northeastern. And like we all do, Greg, everyone wants to talk about, the ones like us that are lucky that we get head jobs and we move forward in our careers and things like that. I left a teaching job making $32,000 in Miami to go make $28,000 to be an assistant coach at Northeastern University.
Yeah.
So many of us do that, and but everyone wants to talk about the few that are lucky that can get a head job and make stupid money.
Right.
But the reality is, the majority of the guys, that's the journey. And I'm extremely lucky because I've always ended up with incredible people around me.
Then you went to Cincinnati with Huggy Bear. Just tell our listeners, we have some great avid basketball fans. We see, Bob Huggins on the sidelines at Cincinnati and West Virginia. And what kind of a man is he? What kind of a coach? Give the people, the reality of Bob Huggins, and how did you love working for him?
There's not a phony bone in his body. He's a man's man. That's why his players love him. That's why anyone that gets around him loves him. That's why he can be demanding in an era. That's where our business has changed. We got too many guys that got politically correct. And so they've lost. To be politically correct, you lose the respect of your players, because then your players kind of feel that you're trying to act a certain way to appease the people on the outside of the locker room.
Exactly.
Hugs is as real as any man I've ever come across. And that's why his players love him. That's why he can demand his players play a certain way, and they do.
Yes.
That's why his teams win. And when you work for him, he's the same way. He gives you responsibility, but he don't micromanage you. He makes sure that as a man, you hold up your end of the bargain. And the way he does that is he gives you responsibility and doesn't micromanage you. He just tells you, this is what I need you to do it. And then he's there to help. He's deeper than a basketball coach. I mean, when I was coaching high school basketball, and I went through an experience in the 90s that threw me for a loop. And he had no need to engage in conversations with me. It's not like he had my players. It's not like at the time he was recruiting somebody on my team.
Right.
He stayed on the phone with me for countless hours trying to counsel me and advise me on how to go about that journey I was on at the time. And that's who he is. He's genuine. And I wish that there'd be more guys like Bob Huggins in the business. He's
Frank, you know what I've noticed about him, just being around him a little bit, is how smart a man he is.
incredible.
He doesn't get credit. Is he that smart? I just remember talking to him a few times about things, and he was like spot on, quick, and not verbose, but smart. Is that one of his qualities and his strengths?
It's unbelievable how he's the most intelligent man I've ever been around.
Yeah, exactly.
You can put him in a room with Wall Street folks, and he can engage them in a conversation and sound smarter than them. You can put him in a room with an attorney,
right?
And argue the law with an attorney. And then obviously in basketball, that speaks for itself with what he's done. He's incredible.
Just give me a little bit of advice right now on air. We play West Virginia next year. Do we have to wear football helmets and pads, or just give me a little piece of advice going into that game, man?
I just make sure your players understand that they better not take a play off.
That's right.
Because his team does not take a play off. They're going to play every defensive possession, every out of bounds play, every offensive possession like it's the last one they're playing ever. And that's what his teams are unbelievable at.
Frank, tell me the one job that you've had that didn't make sense to me, or not that it didn't make sense. I'm like, you're a Miami dude, you're a Cuban guy, and you wind up in Manhattan. I can see you being the head coach of St. John's. How did you wind up at Kansas State in Manhattan, Kansas? I don't see the correlation. What was the hook? Was it, how'd you get that job?
Hugs, he took the head job. Actually, I was in his house the night he's trying to make the decision. And he says, Frank, I'm not taking the job unless you come.
Right.
And I said, Hugs, you're my guy. Wherever you go, I'm in. And he says, you sure? Your family coming? I said, yes, we're in. So he calls, takes the job. And so we toast. I call my wife. My wife's from New York. My wife's a New York City girl. And the Queens to be exact. And so I call her and I said, Hun, we're headed to Manhattan. and she starts jumping up and down, just raving about the fact that she's going home. And then I kind of realized, like, oh my God. I said, hon, I'm at Manhattan, Kansas. She hung up on me. And Hug says, everything okay? And I acted like I was still talking with her. And I said, oh yeah, Hug, she's so happy. All right, hon, I'll see you when I get home. I hung up, and she was losing her mind. But like she is, she's a trooper. We went over there, and little did I know that I was going to end up the head basketball coach here like 11 months later.
Frank, now we fast forward, and you get the South Carolina thing, and the next thing you know, you're in the Final Four. I mean, how did that feel? Like, did you ever just stop and think back to the days when you didn't have a job and that you were making the transition and you were coaching high school in Miami? Was that a surreal feeling? Or give me that feeling that I think every coach in America wishes they had. What were your give me Frank Martin at that time when you're by yourself going to the Final Four?
Yeah, it's Greg, fans, they think that you're in the middle of the season and you're worried about 20 years ago, or you're worried about next week. You're worried about, let me survive today.
That's right.
And, we beat Baylor, and we've got a quick, one-day turn to play Florida in the Elite Eight game. I'm not sitting in my hotel room saying, holy cow, can you believe this? I'm actually like worried about how the heck we're going to do against Florida, because we had played them twice, and both games we had split, and both games have been so hard. And so the game starts, and here we go, and now the game ends, and all of a sudden it hits you like, holy cow, we're actually going to the Final Four. And people are running around. I remember watching Jimmy V, and they were asking him when he won the national championship. And
right.
People were trying to tell him, you got an interview here, and he's running around trying to figure out who to hug.
Right.
People trying to put a hat on me. And I'm like, who are you? Get away from me. I'm trying to go shake hands. And
right.
You're just, it's like you're in a state of like, you don't know what's going on. But that moment, I'm standing on Madison Square Garden. My wife's whole side of the family is in New York. Right. My sister and her side of the family, they're in New York. The history of South Carolina, Frank McGuire and all those guys are all from New York. Absolutely. And it's Madison Square Garden. It's the Garden, man. I mean, we're going to the Final Four, and they're playing New York by Sinatra, and it's my team. I'm like, wow. But then the other moment, Greg, that it hit me was now you do all your press conferences, and it's time to go play. So now you're preparing your team about the next game, and we're in a football stadium. Football stadiums are different than basketball arenas. The three, 4 times bigger. The walk from the locker room to get to the tunnel is and then when I got to the tunnel, and you walk out of the tunnel, it's 78,000 people. And now it's another 100-yard walk to get to the court.
That's right.
That whole walk, all I did was started reflecting like my journey, every moment that you just spoke about, the people in my life. And I was like, holy cow, and then I get on the court, and they're playing the national anthem, and I'm standing there, and I caught myself like tourists in New York for the first time. You walk around looking at all the buildings.
Sure.
Myself looking into the stands, like just mesmerized by how many people and the size of it all. And then I said, all right, look straight ahead. So I look straight ahead, and I see Jim Calhoun, Eddie Fogler, Tubby Smith, all these Hall of Famers. Now I'm standing there, I'm saying, these guys are here to see my team play. How did I end up here? This is incredible. But that's an honest kind of description of what I felt and went through.
And now you're called upon, Frank, as the chairman of the NABC committee. Basically, you're a coach leading the cause to help fight and eradicate racism and abuse towards our players, towards our game and society. That's got to be a huge mantle to carry. Tell me how that came about, what you're doing. And I texted you right away and asked you if there's anything that I can do from a local point of view here in New Jersey and New York. As a member of the NABC, I'm here for you. But tell me about that great responsibility that you now hold.
Yeah, Greg, they asked me to join the NABC board after the 2016 season.
Yep.
And so being on the board, anyone that knows me knows that I'm going to express what I think. I don't tell people that they're wrong. I think because we all see things differently, but I'm going to express what I think, and I'm willing to stand up and articulate what I believe is right. And so when we were in our conversations about, as the NABC, how do we handle this moment? I did what I usually do, which is I don't shy away from expressing what I believe in or what my life has taught me. And I did that. And Conzo Martin joined me, and then Tommy Amaker joined me on that, like expressing, and they just turned around and said, Frank, we're making you the lead. And then Tommy, I said, you guys just going to throw me out there? And Tommy Amaker had a great line. Tommy said, Frank, at the end of the day, sometimes we don't choose. The moment chooses us.
Amen.
And so I just feel that the moment chose me, and Tommy's agreed to be a co-chair with me to help me through this whole thing. I don't know where it's going to take us, but I know this, Greg, there's a lot of, we're involved with a lot of kids that come from some difficult communities, obviously a majority of them being African-American. And there's some inconsistencies with the academic structures that exist that deprive them or make it more difficult for them to get to a college campus. And we all agree that education is the great equalizer. Getting on that college campus and figuring out a way to keep them on college campuses, because of, the guys that come to us, they can stay in college because of their scholarship. Right. But people like me, it took me forever to get a degree because I had to work to pay. And so, I couldn't, my mother couldn't afford to put me through college. I had to work to pay. So it makes it difficult to stay. And so with all those things being said, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what things we can fight to create change and avenues that opens up more doors to be more inclusive and give more people opportunities.
What do you think we can do as coaches? We have, there's 365 Division I coaches, but the Division II, Division III, if you're, and a lot of people listen to our show, believe it or not, what should I be doing? What should we be doing as coaches right now, do you think? I have my plan, but I can use guidance from the NABC. I knew we had a call a few weeks ago, but could you tell our listeners what the coaches are really trying to define and to do to help our players and help our game?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first thing that we need to do is to ask coaches, which we're going to have a call tomorrow, but we've postponed it in respect to Juneteenth.
Right.
So it'll be next Friday. And the first thing we have to do as coaches is we have to have deep, honest conversations amongst ourselves to figure out, because it's hard for me to create change where you're at, Greg, and it's hard for me to create change where I'm at. But if we can have conversations, we can find common grounds where then we can impact. Once again, Tommy Amaker, his words, from an inside out approach, where we can, instead of worrying about how to impact the whole community, the whole country, figure out how we can impact our locker room, our campus, and our community. And then if we all connect as coaches, then what happens? We're going to end up impacting the whole country. So all this is still in the vanilla stage. we're still in some deep conversations to make sure we understand each other first.
Yep.
I said this the other day. Anyone that's not African American right now needs to kind of take a back seat and be humble enough to listen. And listen to the Tommy Amakers and the Anthony Grants and the Conzo Martins of the world. And listen to the challenges, because they're in our business. I said this the other day, like and I'm not into politics. I don't do politics. But the one thing that I've seen happen is the senators have all taken a back seat, and they've allowed Tim Scott, who's the only African-American who's a representative of South Carolina.
Yes.
To lead the conversation so we can all understand his journey through his eyes, so we can better respect it, comprehend it, so then we can then engage it with our life experiences and then try and connect and make it better for the next group of people who come through. And that's what our initial conversations are all about right now, which a week from now, Greg, I'm gonna make sure you're a part of that.
Frank, I can't thank you enough for standing up for the coaches. I'm with you. I'll be on that call and I'll be there for you. Frank, you're a great man. You're a great humanitarian and you're a leader, and I trust you, and I support you wholeheartedly. And most of all, I thank you for being on the Greg Herenda Show, my man.
Yes, sir. Are you kidding me? You know how many years it goes back? When you sent the text, it's the least I can do.
You're the best, man. I miss you. Be well. Hey, get off that knee, and hopefully we'll get down and play you at South Carolina shortly. After I do Huggins, I'm coming down. We're going to play South Carolina and Columbia at some point in time. I'd love to do that.
Done, brother.
All right, man. You're the best, Frank.
Good training you, Greg.
Peace.